The transport ship docked with a heavy clang that echoed through the metal corridors. Day-Wan grabbed his single bag and stepped onto the station for the first time. The air smelled different here, recycled and sterile, with a faint metallic tang that made his nose wrinkle. Through the viewport, the mining planet below looked like a bruised orange, all dust and rock and nothing else. A tall creature waited at the docking gate. She had 4 arms, green-scaled skin, and eyes that looked at him like he was something to be studied under a microscope. "You are the human," she said. It was not a question. "I am. My name is Day-Wan." He bowed slightly, an old habit from home. "I am Dr. Kivos. Follow me." She turned and walked without checking if he followed. Her tail swept the floor behind her with each step. The station was massive. They walked through corridors lined with reinforced doors, each one marked with warning symbols he did not recognize. Strange sounds came from behind some doors, growls, clicks, shrieks. The hair on the back of his neck stood up. "This is the Galactic Rehabilitation Station," Dr. Kivos explained as they walked. "We house dangerous creatures from across known space. Our mission is to study them, understand them, and make them useful." "Useful how?" Day-Wan asked. "Military applications. Security, labor, whatever purpose they can serve." She stopped at a lift and pressed a button. "You have been assigned to observation and basic care duties. You will not handle any specimens without direct supervision." The lift took them up several levels. When the doors opened, they faced a wide corridor with one wall made entirely of transparent material. On the other side was an enormous space, a containment cell big enough to hold a building, and inside was the creature. Day-Wan stopped walking. He could not help it. The thing was massive, 12 feet tall at the shoulder, maybe more. Its body was covered in black scales that looked like polished stone. A ridge of sharp spines ran down its back, each one as long as his arm. Its legs were thick with muscle, ending in claws that had gouged deep marks into the metal floor. But its eyes, those stopped him cold. They glowed like melted copper, bright and aware and full of something that looked like rage mixed with pain. "We call them Vorash," Dr. Kivos said. Her voice had changed, become flatter. "This one is Subject 47. It comes from a death world called Krathmore. We have had it for 2 years." "What happened to Subjects 1 through 46? Day-Wan asked, though he already knew the answer would be bad. "Most are dead. Some were released as failures. This one..." She paused. "This one kills." As if hearing them, the Vorash lifted its head, those copper eyes fixed on the window. On Day-Wan. He felt the weight of that gaze like a physical thing. "It has killed 3 handlers," Dr. Kivos continued. "Injured 12 more. It has destroyed 4 different containment cells. We had to build this one with triple reinforced durasteel." She pointed to the walls of the cell. "See those marks? Those are from its claws. It tries to dig through every day." Day-Wan moved closer to the window. The Vorash watched him but did not move. Its sides expanded and contracted with each breath. Even from here he could see the scars on its body, marks from weapons, from shackles, from whatever they had used to capture it. "What methods have you tried?" he asked. Dr. Kivos listed them as if reading from a report. "Pain compliance training, starvation conditioning, neural shock collars, pheromone manipulation, dominance assertion by handlers from 7 different species. Nothing works. It fights everything. It would rather die than submit." "Maybe it does not want to submit," Day-Wan said quietly. "What?" "Maybe it just wants to be free." Dr. Kivos made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Freedom is not an option. We invested significant resources in acquiring this specimen. It will serve a purpose or be terminated." The word hung in the air between them. "Terminated. When?" Day-Wan asked. "1 week. The station commander has ordered it. Unless we show progress, Subject 47 will be euthanized." She turned away from the window. "Come. I will show you your quarters." But Day-Wan did not move. He kept watching the Vorash. It had settled onto its belly now, head resting on its front legs. The position looked tired. The copper eyes stayed open, watching the walls, the ceiling, the floor, looking for escape routes that did not exist. That night, Daewon could not sleep. His quarters were small and cold, with a narrow bed and a desk and nothing else. He kept thinking about those eyes, about the scars, about how the creature had looked at him, not with animal stupidity, but with intelligence, with awareness. He got up and went to the computer terminal in his room. It took him an hour to navigate the station's systems, but eventually he found what he wanted. All recorded footage of Subject 47. There were hundreds of hours. He started watching. The first video showed the capture. Armed soldiers in heavy armor surrounding a pack of Vorash on a volcanic plain, weapons firing, the creatures scattering. One of them, Subject 47, the largest, turned back, trying to protect smaller ones. The young ones, Daewon realized. Its pack, its family. They shot it with nets, with tranquilizers, with energy weapons. It kept fighting until it collapsed. When it woke up, it was in a cage, alone. The other Vorash were gone. Daewon felt sick. He watched more. Video after video of handlers trying to approach the creature. Every species in the galaxy seemed to have taken a turn. A Catharian, big as a bear and twice as strong, tried to assert dominance. The Vorash nearly killed it in seconds. A Threxian used shock prods. The Vorash learned to endure the pain and attacked anyway. A Quilnari tried pheromone control. The Vorash ignored it completely, but Daewon noticed something. In every video, the Vorash only attacked when cornered, when threatened, when handlers came at it with weapons or aggressive postures. Its ears would flatten, its spines would rise. Then it would explode into violence. It was not evil. It was not a monster. It was scared. He watched until morning came. The last video showed yesterday's feeding attempt. A different Catharian handler, brave or foolish, approached with meat. The Vorash had retreated to the far corner, making itself as small as something that size could be. But the handler kept coming, kept pushing forward. The Vorash gave warnings, a low rumble, spines rattling. The handler ignored them. The attack was brutal and fast. Only the emergency system saved the handler's life. Daewon turned off the terminal. His eyes burned with tiredness, but his mind was clear. He knew what he had to do. When Dr. Kivos arrived for morning rounds, she found Daewon waiting outside her office. "I want to try something different," he said. She looked at him like he had lost his mind. "You have been here one day." "I know, but I have an idea. A different approach. The greatest minds in the galaxy have tried everything." "No," Daewon said. "They have tried everything that treats it like an enemy, like a weapon, like a thing to be controlled." He met her eyes. "No one has tried treating it like what it is." "And what is that?" "A scared animal that lost its family." Dr. Kivos stared at him for a long moment. Then she walked past him into her office. "You are foolish," she said. But she did not say no. Captain Velnara had a face like carved stone and eyes that saw everything. She stood behind her desk, all 6 feet of her, with insect wings folded against her back and antenna twitching as she listened to Daewon's request. "You want to work with Subject 47, she said, "the creature that has killed 3 of my people." "Yes." "Why would I allow this?" Daewon chose his words carefully. "Because in 1 week you will kill it anyway. What do you lose by letting me try?" One of her antennae curled forward, pointing at him. "I lose a xenobiologist. Humans are rare in this sector. Replacing you would be expensive. Then I will sign whatever papers you need. My life, my risk." Captain Velnara walked to her window. Outside stars moved slowly past. "What makes you think you can succeed where others failed?" "I do not know if I will succeed," Daewon admitted. "But everyone else tried to dominate it, to break it. I want to try something else." "And what is that?" "Understanding." The captain turned back to face him. Her face showed nothing. Then she pressed a button on her desk. "You have 1 week. If you are killed, that is on you. If you fail, the creature dies as scheduled. Do you accept these terms?" "I do." "Then you are either very brave or very stupid." "I have not decided which." She waved a hand toward the door. "Get out of my office." In the corridor outside, Daewon found Hyejin waiting. She was the only other human on the station, an engineer who had been here for 6 years. Her hair was tied back tight and her uniform was covered in grease stains. "I heard," she said. "You are crazy." "Probably. Subject 47 will tear you apart." "Maybe." She grabbed his arm. "Daewon, I am serious. I have seen what that thing does. I helped clean up after the last attack. There was blood everywhere." He looked at her kind face, at the worry in her eyes. "Then help me not become blood everywhere." She stared at him. Then she sighed like someone who knew she was making a mistake, but could not help herself. "What do you need?" "Information first. Can you get me access to records about Krathmore? The planet where they found it? I can do that. And I need to make changes to its containment cell." Hyejin raised an eyebrow. "What kind of changes?" "Environmental ones. Temperature, lighting, sound. The station treats it like every other creature, but it is not from here. Its world was different. That will take work, I know, but I have time." 1 week, he tried to smile. "That is almost forever." She did not smile back. "Okay, but you need to promise me something." "What?" "If it attacks, you run. You do not try to be a hero. You do not try to calm it down. You run and you let the emergency systems handle it." Daewon nodded. "I promise." She did not look convinced, but she nodded back. "I will help you. But only because someone needs to keep you alive." The next 3 days were busy. Hyejin got him access to the archives, and Daewon spent every free moment reading about Krathmore. It was a volcanic world, active and violent. The surface was covered in ash fields and lava rivers. The temperature was cold despite the volcanic activity. The ash clouds blocked most sunlight. The Vorash lived in the twilight zones, hunting in packs, working together to survive. They were social creatures, pack animals, and this one had been ripped away from its pack and locked alone in a bright, hot, noisy cell for 2 years. No wonder it wanted to kill everything that came near. Daewon made a list of changes and showed it to Captain Velnara. She looked at it like he had written it in a language she did not understand. "You want to make the cell colder?" she asked. "Its home world is cold. We keep it too hot here. You want to dim the lights? Its eyes are made for twilight. Our lights hurt it. You want to move it away from the engine section where there is noise? Constant machine sounds stress it. It cannot rest." Captain Velnara put down the list. "This is absurd." "This is science," Daewon said. "We change variables and observe results. If it does not work, you have lost nothing." Dr. Kivos, who was also in the meeting, made a hissing sound. "This is human sentimentality. You want to make the creature comfortable, but it is not a pet. It is a dangerous specimen." "It is a living thing," Daewon replied, "and living things respond to their environment. If we want different behavior, we need to provide different conditions." The captain studied him for a long moment. Then she picked up the list and handed it to Dr. Kivos. "Make these changes." "Captain, I must protest." "Your protest is noted." "Make the changes." She looked at Daewon. "You have used 3 days. 4 remain." The changes took 2 days to implement. Hyejin worked almost around the clock, rerouting systems and adjusting controls. The cell's temperature dropped 15 degrees. The bright security lights were replaced with softer amber ones. Sound-dampening panels were installed to block the engine noise. Daewon watched from the observation window as the changes took effect. At first, Subject 47 did not seem to notice. It lay in its usual corner, head on its legs, eyes half closed but never fully asleep. But then slowly something changed. Its breathing became deeper. The tension in its muscles eased slightly. On the second day after the changes, it got up and walked around the cell, not pacing frantically like before, but exploring. Its nose lifted, testing the air. "Look at this," Hyejin said, pointing to a monitor. "Its stress hormones have dropped 30%. Dr. Kivos, who had come to check the results, looked at the numbers with a frown. "Interesting," she admitted. "But this does not make it safe." "No," Daewon agreed. "But it makes it less terrified. Fear makes creatures dangerous. Take away some fear, you take away some danger." "Theory," Dr. Kivos said. "We will see." That afternoon, Daewon did something that made the observation staff think he was insane. He brought a chair to the window, sat down, and just stayed there. He brought a book and read. He brought his lunch and ate. He did not stare at the Vorash. He did not tap on the glass or make noise. He just existed in the creature's peripheral vision. Subject 47 noticed him, of course. Its head turned, its copper eyes fixed on the window on the human sitting there. But Daewon did not react. He turned a page in his book. He took a bite of his sandwich. He was just there, calm and quiet and non-threatening. An hour passed. 2. The Vorash kept watching, but its spines did not rise. Its posture did not tense. It seemed confused more than angry. "What is the point of this?" Dr. Kivos asked. She had stayed to observe. "I am becoming furniture," Daewon said. "Something familiar. Something safe. You are wasting time. Maybe, but I have 2 days left. Let me waste them my way." She left, shaking her head. But Daewon stayed. He stayed until his shift ended, and then he came back the next morning and stayed again. He began talking too, not to the creature, just talking. Telling stories about Earth, about his grandmother's farm, about the dogs they had. His voice was low and steady, never sharp or loud. Subject 47 listened. He could tell because its ears would swivel toward the sound even when its eyes were closed. On the last day before his scheduled entry into the cell, something happened. Daewon was sitting in his usual spot, reading aloud from a book about animal behavior when the Vorash stood up. It walked toward the window, toward him, and for a moment his heart stopped. But the creature did not attack the glass. It did not bare its teeth or rattle its spines. It just came close, close enough that Daewon could see the patterns in its scales, the scars hidden beneath them, close enough that their eyes met through the transparent barrier. They stared at each other, man and beast, human and alien, 2 creatures who should have been enemies. The Vorash tilted its head just slightly, a gesture that looked almost curious. Daewon smiled. "Hey friend," he said softly. "Tomorrow we meet for real. Please do not kill me." The Vorash huffed, a sound like steam escaping, and then turned away. But it did not go back to its corner. It settled down in the middle of the cell, closer to the window than it had ever been before. Hyejin found him there an hour later, still sitting, still watching. "Tomorrow is the day," she said. "I know. Are you scared?" Daewon thought about lying, but she was his friend and friends deserved truth. "Terrified. You can still back out." "No, I cannot." He looked at her. "If I do not try, they will kill it, and it does not deserve to die just because everyone else was too scared to understand it." Hyejin sat down next to him. Together they watched the Vorash through the glass, this impossible creature from an impossible world, and wondered what tomorrow would bring. The morning came too fast and too slow at the same time. Daewon woke before his alarm, stomach tight with nerves. He showered and dressed in his uniform, hands shaking slightly as he pulled on his boots. Today he would either make history or become a cautionary tale. The observation deck was crowded when he arrived. Word had spread through the station like fire. Everyone wanted to see the human die. No one said it that way, of course. They said they were there to observe and document and learn. But Daewon could see it in their eyes, the dark curiosity, the morbid anticipation. They had made bets. He heard the whispers. Most gave him less than 30 seconds. Captain Velnara was there, standing rigid with her arms crossed. Dr. Kivos sat at a control panel, monitoring readouts. And Hyejin stood by the emergency protocol station, her face pale but determined. "Last chance to reconsider," the captain said. Daewon shook his head. "I am going in. The moment it shows aggression, we activate emergency measures. You will have approximately 4 seconds to reach the door. Do you understand?" "I understand." Dr. Kivos turned in her chair. "Subject 47 has been fed this morning. Its aggressive behavior is typically lower after feeding, though this is not guaranteed. I have reviewed all safety protocols. They are ready." "Thank you," Daewon said, though his mouth was dry. Hyejin came close and grabbed his hand. "Remember your promise. If it attacks, you run." "I remember." He squeezed her hand. "See you in a few minutes." "You better." The walk to the cell entrance was the longest walk of his life. Each step felt heavy. His heart hammered in his chest so hard he thought others must hear it. The door to the cell was massive, reinforced metal with multiple locks. It hissed as it began to open, releasing air pressure. The sound was loud in the silent observation deck. Through his earpiece, he heard Captain Velnara's voice. "Door is opening. You may enter when ready." Daewon took a breath, then another. He thought about his grandmother's farm, about the old dog they had, about how it had been mistreated before they got it. That dog had bitten 3 people before his grandmother brought it home. Everyone said it was dangerous, that it should be put down. But his grandmother had been patient. She had been kind. And eventually, that dog had become the gentlest creature on the farm. "Here we go," Day-One whispered, and stepped through the door. The cell was huge from the inside. The ceiling stretched far above, the walls far to each side. The modified amber lighting cast everything in a warm glow. And there, 30 feet away, was Subject 47. The Vorash was standing. Its copper eyes were locked on him. Its spines lifted slightly, not fully raised, but alert. Its massive body was tense, coiled. Ready. Day-One heard gasps from the observation deck through his earpiece. Someone said, "It is going to charge." But he did not look at the creature directly. Instead, he turned his body at an angle, presenting his side rather than facing it head-on. In the body language of Earth predators, a direct face-on approach was a challenge. An angled approach was neutral. He walked slowly to a spot about 20 feet from the Vorash, then sat down, cross-legged, his back partially turned, vulnerable, trusting. Every instinct screamed at him to watch the creature, to track its movements, to be ready to run, but he forced himself to look away, to stare at the floor instead. The Vorash made a sound, a low rumble that vibrated through the air. Day-One's heart jumped, but he did not move. Silence, long, stretching silence. He could hear his own breathing, too fast and too loud. Then he heard it, the click of claws on metal. The Vorash was moving toward him. "Day-One, it is approaching." He-Jin's voice in his ear, tight with fear. Get ready to run, but he did not run. He stayed sitting, stayed calm, even as those footsteps came closer. Even as he felt the temperature rise from the creature's body heat. Even as the smell hit him, sulfur and ash and something wild. The Vorash circled him. He could see it in his peripheral vision, a massive shadow moving around his position. Its head lowered close enough that he could hear its breathing. Deep, rasping breaths like wind through a cave. It circled once, twice, testing, evaluating, deciding whether he was threat or prey or something else entirely. Day-One began to hum. An old lullaby his grandmother used to sing, something gentle and wordless. The sound was shaky at first, but he steadied it, made it soft and calm and safe. The Vorash stopped circling. It stood directly in front of him now, so close that its shadow covered him completely. He could feel its breath hot against the top of his head. One bite, one swipe of those claws. That was all it would take. Subject 47 is in strike position, Dr. Kivos's voice, clinical and detached. Recommend immediate evacuation. But Day-One looked up, slowly, carefully. He met those copper eyes. The Vorash stared back. And this close, Day-One could see what he had missed from behind the glass. The eyes were not just angry. They were exhausted. They were sad. They were the eyes of something that had fought for so long it forgot what peace felt like. "Hey, friend," Day-One said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I know you are scared. I know they hurt you. I know you lost your family and this place is wrong and everything here wants to hurt you or control you or break you." He kept his voice steady, kept his eyes on the creature's eyes. "But not me. I am not here to hurt you. I'm not here to control you. I just want to understand. I just want to help." The Vorash's head tilted, the same gesture it had made through the glass. Its spines lowered, just a fraction. "I know what it is like to be alone," Day-One continued. He was saying things he did not plan to say, words coming from somewhere deep. "I know what it is like to be far from home, to be in a place that feels all wrong, to be surrounded by creatures who do not understand you. I know what it is like to miss your family." Something changed in those copper eyes, a flicker of recognition, of connection. Day-One raised his hand slowly, palm down, fingers loose. The same gesture humans had used for thousands of years with dogs and horses, and every creature they had befriended. A gesture that said, "I am not a threat. I am just here." He held his hand there, steady, waiting, not reaching forward, not demanding, just offering. The choice was the Vorash's to make. In the observation deck, no one breathed. No one spoke. The entire station seemed to hold its breath. The Vorash looked at the hand. It lowered its head, bringing its massive snout close. Day-One could see his own reflection in its scales. The creature's nostrils flared, breathing in his scent. Then slowly, so slowly it seemed to take forever, the Vorash moved forward. Its nose touched Day-One's palm. The contact lasted only a second. Just a brief touch, warm and rough. Then the creature pulled back and sat down, its haunches hitting the floor with a thud that shook the ground. It did not attack. It did not threaten. It just sat there watching him with those copper eyes, and for the first time in 2 years, something in its expression was not anger or fear. It was curiosity. Daewon let out a breath he did not know he was holding. His hand was still raised, still steady despite the trembling that wanted to take over his whole body. "That is right," he said softly. "That is right, friend. We are okay. We are going to be okay." Behind him, he heard Captain Velnara's voice, quiet with disbelief. "Mark this moment. Timestamp it. This is first peaceful contact with Subject 47. Vital signs are stable," Dr. Kivos added. And there was something in her voice that might have been awe, both human and creature. "No aggression indicators. This should not be possible." But it was possible. It was happening. Man and beast sharing space, sharing breath, sharing a moment of understanding that crossed the gap between species. Daewon stayed in the cell for 20 more minutes. He did not touch the Vorash again. He just sat there talking quietly, letting the creature grow accustomed to his presence. When he finally stood to leave, moving slowly and carefully, the Vorash watched but made no move to stop him. At the door, Daewon turned back. "I will come back tomorrow," he promised. "Every day. Until you trust me. Until you know you are safe." The Vorash tilted its head again. Then it made a sound, low and almost gentle. Not a growl. Not a threat. Something different. Acknowledgement. The door closed behind him and the observation deck erupted. People talking over each other, arguing, analyzing, theorizing. But Daewon heard none of it. He just leaned against the wall, legs shaking, and tried to remember how to breathe normally. Heejin was there in seconds, wrapping him in a hug so tight it hurt. "You insane, beautiful idiot," she said into his shoulder. "You actually did it." "It did it," Daewon corrected. "It chose not to kill me. That was its choice." Captain Velnara approached, her face unreadable. "1 week is no longer enough," she said. "I am extending your time. You will continue working with Subject 47 until we see conclusive results." "Thank you, Captain." "Do not thank me. Just do not die." She turned to address the crowd. "Everyone out. Show is over. Back to your duties." As the crowd dispersed, Dr. Kivos remained. She studied Daewon with her cold reptilian eyes. "I do not understand what happened in there." "I do not fully understand it either," Daewon admitted. "But I think it was tired. Tired of fighting, tired of being alone. And when I gave it the choice not to fight, when I showed it that being alone was not its only option," he shrugged. "It chose differently. Sentiment," Dr. Kivos said. But the word lacked its usual scorn. "Maybe," Daewon replied. "Or maybe just basic kindness. Sometimes that is enough." 3 weeks passed like days and years at the same time. Every morning, Daewon entered the cell. Every morning, the Vorash was waiting. And every day, they got a little bit closer. The first week after initial contact, Daewon did nothing but sit and talk. He brought books and read aloud. Stories from Earth, scientific papers about animal behavior, even poetry. The Vorash would settle down nearby, not quite close enough to touch, and listen. Its copper eyes would track him as he moved, but the wariness was fading, replaced by something that looked almost like interest. The second week, he brought food. Not the standard rations the staff provided, but fresh meat from the station's stores. He placed it on the floor and moved away, giving the creature space. The Vorash approached cautiously, sniffed the offering, then ate. After that, Daewon always brought the food himself. It became a ritual, a trust exercise. By the third week, the Vorash would come to him first thing each morning. Still cautious, still keeping some distance, but present, engaged. One morning it laid down while he was there, its massive body settling onto the floor with a heavy sigh. That was when Daewon realized the truth. The creature was exhausted. 2 years of constant vigilance, constant fighting, constant fear had worn it down to nothing. It had needed permission to rest, and somehow his presence gave it that. "You need a name," Daewon said one afternoon. He was sitting with his back against the wall and the Vorash was lying 10 feet away. "Subject 47 is not a name. It is a number." "You are not a number." The Vorash's ear swiveled toward him. "I think I will call you Baram. It means wind in Korean, because you move like wind when you are not scared. Fast and strong and free." He paused. "Or you should be free. One day, maybe." Barham huffed. That steam release sound that Day One had learned meant acknowledgement. Not quite agreement, but not disagreement either. Dr. Kivos hated the name. You cannot name it, she said during one of their progress meetings. Names create emotional attachment. Emotional attachment creates bias. This is a research specimen, not a pet. Barham is not a pet, Day One agreed, but Barham is also not a thing. Using the name helps me remember that, and I think it helps Barham too. Recognition of individuality is important for social species. You cannot prove that. No, but I can observe it. Watch the videos. Barham responds differently when I use the name versus when I say Subject 47. The body language changes. The engagement level increases. That is data. Dr. Kivos pulled up the comparison videos on her screen. She watched them twice, her face showing nothing. Then she made a note in her files. Interesting, was all she said. But the breakthrough came during week 4. Day One was telling Barham about Earth, about how humans and wolves had found each other thousands of years ago. They were like you, he said. Hunters. Pack animals, dangerous, everyone was scared of them. But some wolves were curious, and some humans were patient. And over time they learned to live together, to hunt together, to trust each other. Those wolves became dogs. They became companions, friends. Barham was lying down, head resting on front legs, but eyes open and fixed on Day One. I think you understand more than anyone knows, Day One continued. I think you know what I am saying. Maybe not the words, but the meaning. The intention. He shifted his position, moving a little closer. I think you are waiting to see if I am real. If my kindness is real or just another trick. Barham made a low sound, not quite a growl. Questioning. It is real, Day One promised. I am not going anywhere. I will come back every day until you believe me. That was when Barham did something unprecedented. The creature stood, walked over to Day One, and laid down again, right next to him. Close enough that Day One could feel the heat radiating from its body. Close enough to touch. Day One froze. His heart hammered. This was dangerous. One wrong move, one misunderstood gesture, and those jaws could close on him before he could even scream. But Barham just sighed, a long, tired sound, and closed its eyes. Day One sat there, barely breathing, for 30 minutes. The Varash slept, actually slept deeply and truly for the first time since he had known it. The trust in that gesture was overwhelming. This creature, which had every reason to hate humans, to hate all aliens, to trust nothing and no one, had chosen to sleep beside him. When Barham finally woke and moved away, Day One left the cell with tears in his eyes. What happened? Heejin asked when she saw his face. Are you hurt? No, I am. He could not find words. Barham slept. Really slept. Right next to me. She understood immediately. Her eyes widened. Day One, that is huge. That is trust. I know. He wiped his face. I know, and I do not want to break it. I cannot break it. But then Ambassador Talgor arrived and everything changed. The ambassador was a Kilnari, slug-like with 6 eye stalks and a voice like wet mud sliding down a drain. He came to evaluate the station's programs to determine if they should continue receiving funding. He was pompous and dismissive, treating the staff like servants and the creatures like furniture. When he heard about the human who thinks he can tame the untamable, he demanded a demonstration. Captain Velnara called Day One to her office. Ambassador Talgor wants to see your work with Subject 47. He wants a public demonstration. Barham is not ready for that, Day One protested. Too many people, too much noise, it will stress him. I do not care what Barham is ready for, the ambassador said. He was sitting in the captain's chair, having displaced her without asking. I care about results. You claim to have made progress, prove it. Show me that this program is worth the resources we invest. My work is documented. You can review the videos. Videos can be edited, manipulated. I want to see it with my own eyes. All 6 of them. He waved a boneless appendage. You will demonstrate in 3 days. The entire galactic press will be present via holocast. This station's reputation and your program's future depends on success. Day One looked at Captain Velnara for support, but her face was carefully neutral. This was politics beyond his expertise. What kind of demonstration? He asked quietly. I want to see control, obedience, useful behavior. Make the creature follow commands. Make it submit to handling. Show me it can be trusted not to kill someone. The ambassador leaned forward. Or admit that 4 weeks of sitting and talking has accomplished nothing of value. The room fell silent. Daewon felt sick. This was exactly what he had been trying to avoid. Turning Barham into a performing animal, proving dominance, showing control. That was not the relationship they had built. But if he refused, the program would end. Barham would be deemed a failure. And the standing order had never been officially cancelled. They could still euthanize him. "I will do the demonstration," Daewon said. The words tasted like ash. "But I do it my way. On my terms." "You will do it on my terms." "No." Daewon met the ambassador's eyes directly, something that made the creature's stalks recoil. "You want to see results? You will see them. But if you try to dictate how I work with Barham, I will walk away. I will quit. And you will have nothing to show your galactic press except an empty cell and a failed program." It was a gamble, a huge one. But the ambassador, after a long moment, made a gurgling sound that might have been laughter. Bold for a human. "Very well, do it your way. But if you fail, this entire station will be shut down. Everyone here will lose their positions. That weight is on you." When Daewon left the office, he went straight to the cell. Barham was waiting by the window as if sensing his distress. "We have a problem," Daewon said through the intercom. Then he entered the cell and sat down in his usual spot. Barham came over immediately and settled beside him, as had become their habit. Daewon told Barham everything. About the ambassador, about the demonstration, about what was at stake. Did the creature understand the words? Probably not. But it understood the tone, the emotion, the worry. Barham pressed closer, offering comfort in the only way it knew. "I will not betray you," Daewon promised. "Whatever happens, I will not ask you to do anything that makes you uncomfortable. We will show them what trust looks like. Not control. Not dominance, trust." He ran his hand along Barham's side, the first time he had dared to touch the creature. The scales were warm and smooth like sun-heated stone.
"But I need you to trust me."
Can you do that?
Barham's copper eyes met his. In them, Daewon saw intelligence, understanding, and something that might have been determination. The creature made a low rumble that vibrated through the floor. "Yes," it seemed to say. "Yes, I trust you." That night, Daewon did something unprecedented. He brought a sleeping mat into the cell and stayed overnight. Hyjin protested, but he insisted. If they were going to face the demonstration together, he needed to show Barham absolute commitment. He lay on the mat, vulnerable and small in the huge cell. And Barham, after watching him for a while, curled its massive body around him, not trapping him, but sheltering him, protecting him. Daewon fell asleep listening to the creature's breathing, steady and deep, and for the first time in weeks he was not afraid. The demonstration day arrived with the weight of a falling star. The observation theater was packed with dignitaries from across the galaxy. Insectoid Threxians, crystalline Vornak, gaseous Metherians in containment suits, and dozens of other species. Holocams hovered everywhere, broadcasting to millions of viewers across known space. The air hummed with anticipation and judgment. Ambassador Talgor stood at the center of it all, his eye stalks swiveling to take in the crowd. When everyone was settled, he began to speak, his voice amplified through the theater's systems. "We gather here today to witness a test," he announced. "For 4 weeks, a human xenobiologist has claimed progress with Subject 47, the Vorash deemed too dangerous for any purpose. We have invested significant resources in this station, in this program. Today we see if that investment has value, or if humanity's reputation for emotional weakness has compromised our mission." Daewon stood in the preparation area, listening through the speakers. His jaw tightened at the word weakness, but he said nothing. Hyjin stood beside him, checking and rechecking the emergency systems. "You do not have to do this," she said quietly. "Screw the ambassador. Screw all of them. We can find another way. There is no other way." Daewon looked at her. "If I do not do this, they shut down the station. Everyone loses their jobs. And Barham?" He did not finish. They both knew what would happen to Barham. Captain Velnara appeared, her face grim. "They are ready for you," Daewon nodded. He took a breath, steadied himself, and walked toward the cell entrance. Behind him, he heard Hyjin whisper, "Come back alive." The cell door opened. Through it, he could see Barham pacing anxiously. The crowd, the lights, the noise, all of it was wrong, frightening, triggering every defensive instinct the creature had. Its spines were half raised, its movements jerky. When it saw Day-Wan, it rushed toward him, not attacking but seeking reassurance. Day-Wan entered and let the door close behind him. Immediately, Barham was there, pressing close, breathing hard. The creature's distress was obvious. In the observation theater, he heard murmurs. "Look at how agitated it is," someone said. "This is already a failure," but Day-Wan ignored them. He reached up and placed both hands on Barham's snout, meeting those copper eyes. "I know," he said softly in Korean, the language Barham had heard most often. "I know this is scary. Too many eyes, too much noise. But you are safe. I promise you are safe. We will do this together, okay? Just you and me. Forget about them." Barham's breathing slowed slightly. Its spines lowered a fraction. The copper eyes searched his face, looking for lies, finding none. "That is it," Day-Wan whispered. "That is my friend. We are okay." He turned to face the observation theater, and Barham turned with him, staying close to his side. This was not the planned demonstration. There was no show of control, no performance of obedience, just a man and a creature standing together. "Ambassador Talgor," Day-Wan said, his voice carried by the cell's audio systems. "You asked for a demonstration of progress. I will show you. But first I need to explain something." The ambassador's eye stalks quivered with annoyance. "Explain quickly." "My time is valuable. 4 weeks ago, everyone believed Subject 47 was a monster. Untrainable, deadly. Useless except as a cautionary example." Day-Wan kept his hand on Barham's side, a steady, grounding touch. "But you were wrong. Not about what the creature was, you were wrong about why." He walked slowly across the cell, and Barham walked with him, matching his pace. Not following commands, but choosing to stay close, choosing companionship. "This creature was never a monster," Day-Wan continued. "It was a scared, traumatized survivor. You took it from its homeworld during a violent raid. You killed its pack, its family. Then you locked it alone in a cell designed for your comfort, not its needs. You hurt it when it fought back. You punished it for fear responses, and when it continued to resist, you blamed the creature." Dr. Kivos shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Other observers looked away. "The problem was never the Vorash," Day-Wan said, his voice harder now. "The problem was you. All of you. You approached it with violence, expecting submission. You treated it like a thing to be broken, a tool to be sharpened. You forgot the most basic truth that humans learned thousands of years ago." He stopped in the center of the cell. Barham stopped beside him, close enough that they touched. Close enough that trust was obvious. "What truth is that?" Ambassador Talgor demanded, his voice dripping with condescension. Day-Wan looked directly at the observation window, at all those watching eyes. "That you cannot force loyalty. You cannot beat love into existence. You cannot torture something into trusting you. The only way to build a real bond with another living creature is through patience, respect, and kindness." He demonstrated as he spoke. He showed how Barham would follow him without commands, simply because the creature wanted to stay close. He showed how he could examine Barham's teeth, its claws, its scales, not because he forced it, but because Barham allowed it. He showed how Barham would accept food from his hand, would settle down when asked through gentle touch rather than harsh words, would even allow medical scanning equipment near it without panicking. "This is not control," Day-Wan explained. "This is partnership, cooperation, trust. These are things you cannot measure with your shock collars and pain compliance. But they are real, and they are stronger than any chain you could forge." Ambassador Talgor stood abruptly. "Impressive theater, human. But theater is not utility. Can you ride the creature? Can you direct it in combat? Can you make it attack on command?" His eye stalks fixed on Day-Wan. "If you cannot show dominance, then you have proven nothing except that humans waste time on useless sentiment." The theater went silent. This was the challenge, the test that would define everything. Day-Wan felt Barham tense beside him. The creature had heard the ambassador's tone, sensed the threat in it. Its spines began to rise again. "You want me to prove dominance," Day-Wan said slowly. "You want me to ride Barham like a mount, to show that humans can break even the strongest will." "Exactly." Day-Wan looked at Barham. The creature looked back, copper eyes full of trust, of vulnerability, of the fragile bond they had built over weeks of patience. He could force it. Use that trust against the creature, climb onto its back, prove the point the ambassador wanted proved. It would work. Barham would allow it, because Barham trusted him, and in doing so, he would betray everything they had built. He would become just another handler using a different kind of cruelty, emotional manipulation instead of physical pain. No, Daiwan said. The word echoed through the theater like a gunshot. No? Ambassador Talgor's voice rose. You refuse? I refuse to betray my friend for your entertainment. Daiwan stepped away from Barum and faced the window fully. You want to see dominance? Then look at every other species in this galaxy. Look at your wars, your conquests, your endless need to control everything you fear. That is dominance. That is what you understand, he gestured to Baram. But this is something you have forgotten. This is what humans remember. We do not tame creatures by breaking them. We befriend them. We earn their trust. We become partners, not masters. Pathetic, the ambassador spat. You have accomplished nothing. I have accomplished everything. Daiwan's voice was calm now, certain. I have shown that the untamable creature was never the problem. Your approach was, your cruelty was, your arrogance was. He looked around at all the watching faces. How many creatures in this station are labeled dangerous because you hurt them first? How many are aggressive because you gave them no choice? How many could be partners if you tried patience instead of punishment? But then something happened that surprised everyone. Barum moved. The creature walked past Daiwan to stand between him and the observation window. A protective stance. Defensive. And then, slowly, deliberately, Barum lowered its body in a crouch. An invitation. Daiwan stared. Barum, you do not have to. But Barum made that huffing sound. The one that meant yes. That meant trust. The creature looked back at him, and in those copper eyes was not submission. It was choice. It was Barum saying, I understand what they want. I will do this. Not because you force me, but because I choose to. For you. Tears stung Daiwan's eyes. He walked to Baram's side and carefully, respectfully, climbed onto the creature's back. He positioned himself just behind the spines, his hands gentle on the scales. Barum rose, and together they moved around the cell, not as master and mount, but as partners, as friends. The movement was fluid, natural, born of trust rather than training. When they completed the circuit, Baram stopped and Daiwan dismounted immediately. He threw his arms around the creature's neck. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you, friend. The observation theater erupted. Some were applauding. Others were arguing. Ambassador Talgor stood frozen, his eye stalks rigid. Then someone else stood. Captain Velnara walked to the front of the theater and activated the intercom. I have seen enough. Ambassador Talgor, you asked for a demonstration of value. You have seen it. This human has accomplished in 4 weeks what the greatest minds in the galaxy failed to do in 2 years. Not through dominance, through understanding. She turned to address the crowd. Effective immediately, this station will implement new protocols. Human-led empathy training will become standard for all difficult cases. We will retrain our staff. We will redesign our methods. Because what we just witnessed is not weakness, it is the future of xenobiological relations. Ambassador Talgor sputtered protests, but they were drowned out by the noise of discussion, of debate, of minds changing. The Holocaust had shown everything to the galaxy. There was no hiding from it now. Daiwan stayed in the cell while the theater emptied, just sitting with Barum processing what had happened. Jin entered once it was safe, sitting on his other side. You did it, she said. You crazy, stubborn, beautiful human. You actually did it. We did it, Daiwan corrected, nodding to Barum. It was always we. 6 months later, the station was transformed. Daiwan ran the new training program, teaching handlers from across the galaxy. The success rate with previously untrainable creatures reached 90%. 3 more Vorash had been brought to the station, not as prisoners but as potential partners in an interspecies cooperation program. And Barum was going home. A transport ship was ready, equipped to return the creature to Krathmore and establish the galaxy's first conservation program based on partnership rather than exploitation. On the day of departure, Daiwan stood in the docking bay with Barum. The creature seemed to understand what was happening. It kept looking between Daiwan and the ship, uncertain. You need to go home, Daiwan said, his hand on Barum's snout one last time. Your world needs you. Your species needs you, and you need to be free, really free, not just comfortable in a bigger cage. Barum made a low, sad sound. I will visit, Daiwan promised. The program means I will come to Krath more often. We will see each other, but you cannot stay here. This was never meant to be forever. For a long moment they stood together, man and beast, human and alien, two souls who had found each other across an impossible distance. Then Bahram turned and walked toward the ship, looking back once with those copper eyes that held understanding, gratitude, and something that might have been love. Hai Jin put her arm around Daewon's shoulders as the ship departed. You okay? I will be. He watched the ship become a distant star. We proved something important today. We proved that the galaxy's way is not the only way, that there is strength in gentleness, power in patience, and value in treating others with respect, no matter how different they are. Very philosophical, she teased gently. Maybe, he smiled. But also true. Humans knew it thousands of years ago when we befriended wolves. We just had to remind the galaxy. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways. Sometimes the answer is not to be stronger or smarter or more dominant. He looked at her. Sometimes the answer is just to be kind. They stood together in the docking bay, watching the stars, and thought about all the other creatures still labeled as monsters, still waiting for someone patient enough to say those two simple words that could change everything. Hey, friend.